Om Sarvadharmastapakastvam Sarvadharmaswarupakah Acharyanam Mahacharyo Ramakrishnaya Te Namaha. We are studying here Sri Ramakrishna, the Great Master, the fifth part, the Master in Divine Mood and Narendranath. And we are reading the second section of the sixth chapter. The name, what is the name in your book? No, chapter heading.
Oh, Master and Narendra's Divine Relationship. That is the chapter name. And yes, Master and the Narendra's Divine Relationship.
Master and Narendranath?
Divine Relationship.
Divine Relationship. Because I slightly modified the heading which is in this book.
Oh.
So I am asking your book. And that is better. That is a good translation. Here the heading translation was relation, extraordinary relation. Extraordinary relation between the Master and Narendranath. Now, extraordinary is extraordinary, but does not suggest the shift of level, which is there in divine. I modified it slightly as like a sentence. The relation between the Master and Narendranath was not of this world. Laukik, alaukik, not of this world. And the whole theme is that before this chapter we had Sri Ramakrishna's selfless love for Narendranath. And before that, Thakur touched Narendranath 3 times differently. First day he did not touch him, he was only talking, you are like that, you are like that. And Narendra concluded he is a monomaniac. But he has sarvasva tag for God and he has realized God. Second visit, Thakur touched him by his foot. And Narendra saw in a conscious state that room, everything in that room and his eye consciousness, they are revolving and going into a void. Now, according to him at that point, eye going into void means death. So he shouted, what are you doing? I am my parents. Then Thakur laughed. And all this is in Narendra's conscious mind. And touched his heart. And said, okay, let it not be immediately, it will happen gradually. And by that the vision finished. So Thakur's play was like a magician. Whatever he wants, he is doing. Then in the third visit, Naren went with great caution. I will not allow him to influence me. And then he was thinking, how can I call him monomaniac then? I am a strong-willed person and he just molds like clay my mind. And that day Thakur did not talk with him in Dakshineshwar. Perhaps there were more people. He took him to Yadumani's garden. And there Thakur entered Samadhi and then touched him by his feet. And the effect was totally different. Narendra's surface mind or surface personality became totally suppressed. And the inner Narendranath, that talked with Thakur and replied to all Thakur's questions. Because doubt had come in Thakur's mind, Narendra is from this or that, why he is afraid of Nirvikalpa Samadhi? So doubt had come, whether my visions were wrong. So in the third meeting, he did a very different thing. He suppressed Narendra's outer mind, and from the inner mind he got all the replies. And they exactly tallied with what Narendra was. Now, after that, Narendra is very strong, not hard-hearted, but strong character. And he does not want to surrender to Thakur. He has respected Thakur, has understood that you have to accept Thakur as an incarnation. Then only all these things will fit in. But he is still keeping his own personality in reserve. So what is it that will change that attitude? So for that, the last chapter told us a selfless love, Thakur's selfless love, and faith infinite in Narendra, freedom infinite, and love without any selfish motive. So that is the thing which is going to catch Narendra. And then come to this chapter, two sections. That both sides, Thakur and Narendra side, the relationship between them was not of this world. The translation in Chaitanaji's book is divine relationship. So that is we are reading. And incident after incident showing what level that relationship was based. And how much Thakur loved him that we saw. He went to Brahma's meeting and then was not cared for, insulted. Naren felt very sorry. He scolded Thakur on that point. And Thakur by one word removed all that. Because I see Narayan in you, so I see you. I had not seen Narayan, I would not have looked at you. So Swamiji says that all my arguments he washed up by one word only. Now this relationship is going on. And we have seen Thakur knows that he is high adhikari. So he praises him on his face and in front of Kedar. And Kedar has great faith. So he won't be disturbed that Kedar's arguments aren't cut like that, anything. So like that we are read. Now, the next topic is, which we are going on. Oh, 1 minute, 1 minute. I have not put this on. Naren and Rakhal. Rakhal was a soft person. And because of Naren, he joined the Brahma Samaj. And in Brahma Samaj, they signed that we shall worship only Nirakar. And coming to Sri Ramakrishna, Rakhal's instincts are aroused. And he was visiting the temple and saluting. Narendra scolded him. So he became afraid of facing Narendra. Then Thakur told Narendra that everybody does not have the Nirakar idea from the beginning. That means later on he will have. And he will have the real Nirakar Nirgun. You know, he started with complete Sagun, Thakur as mother. And his name is Brahmananda. For 8 days at Omkareshwar, he was in Nirvikalpa Samadhi. And Subodhan Swami was with him. And he used to go for Bhiksha, Subodhan Swami, and keep that rotis in water. So any moment he saw Rakhal Maji slightly conscious, he would feed him by that soft rotis. That man came to Thakur, beat him like that. So Subodhan Swami kept him like that. And though Subodhan Swamiji is himself very tender and always coca, but Holy Mother told him, you take care of my child, Rakha. That is how they had come together. So we call Thakur as Acharya Mahacharya. He made all his disciples perfect in all respects so that they can guide people. That is the idea. So Rakhal started from Sagumi and did Nirguna. So Thakur is telling Narendranath that everybody cannot have conceived Nirakar from the beginning. We should not scold him. And then their relationship became normal again. That was the last topic. Now, we go back a little yesterday. We go to para 10. The master attempted to lead Narendra to the doctrine of non-dualism. Narendra's protest. Now here, Thakur does some wonderful trick. Thakur again says, nobody's bhav should be disturbed. Now what is this bhav? Bhav is not what we think. Bhav is the inner relationship with God. This you have to understand. Narendra, by the influence of Western education and Brahma Samaj, was thinking of Nirakar Sagun Brahma. But Narendra's inner constitution is fit for Nirakar Nirguna, Advaita. Now, both of them are Narendra's bhav. That is the real bhav. This is today's bhav. And Thakur is such an excellent teacher. He will not disturb today's bhav and lead him to that bhav. That is this para 10. The master understood that Naren was a highly qualified person in the domain of spirituality and tried to infuse into him the belief in the truth of non-dualism from the very first day he met him. So, intellectually, he tried Thakur to convince him of that doctrine. But Swamiji was not ready. The influence of Western education was very strong. He used to give him books like the Ashtavakra Sangita to read as soon as he came to Dakshineshwar. What is this Ashtavakra Sangita? You see, Upanishads are our standard scriptures. Now, Upanishads lead us from where we are to the Advaita, all Upanishads. Now, there are some books which flow only in Advaita. They don't touch the lower strata. Avadhuta Gita, Ashtavakra Sangita, they are books of that type. Both the disciple and the teacher, Janaka is the disciple there, and he is almost into Advaita. And their conversation is that. So that book is given to Narendra and is not allowing others to touch that book, because that will confuse them. Slowly, through whatever he is, Dvaita Vishtadvaita or whatever he slowly led into Advaita. That is Thakur's method for all. But Narendra is the exception. So, to read as soon as he came to Dakshineshwar. But books like these then appear to be blasphemous and atheistic in the eyes of Narendra. Blasphemous means Ishvara Ninda and atheist, Nastikata. In the eyes of Narendra, engaged in the dualistic mode of worship of the formless Brahman with attributes. You have seen that this is Saradananda Swamiji's speciality, Nirakar Sagun. Thakur used to call Kacha Nirakar. And that is how Brahma Samaj thought that they are worshipping Nirakar Nirguna. But Ishwar Srishti Siddhi Pulai Karta, that is the most quality of this. How can he be Nirguna? And fun, out of fun, Nirakar Charana Kamali. So Thakur used to call it raw nirakar and used to equate this with sakar sagu on the level of consciousness. So engaged in the dualistic mode, it is clearly dualistic. The Brahmas did not understand it. What is this name, Brahma? You know, this Okar is Bengali, Brahma. Shiva's worshipper Shaiva, Vishnu's worshipper Vaishnava. So believing or following Brahman is Brahma. And they thought they are following Brahman. So they are Brahmas. But it is dualistic because they are separate. And Naren says, I am a created being. How can I be creator? So that is dualism. As soon as he had read little at the request of the master, he blurted out, what is the difference between this and atheism? Should the created Jiva think of himself as the creator? What can be more sinful than this? So Pap is seeing there. That is what the normal dualist or Vaishnava talk about Shankar. They call, even Ramanuja calls Shankar and Gaudpad as Prachanda Bauddha. So that is what happened. The dualist mind itself like that. One thing I want to tell you, I told, many times I have told, this dualism we say is the lowest step. It is 1,000 times higher than the ordinary man. For ordinary man, either there is no God, or there is a God. With him, he is not concerned. But dualist holds God as the supreme reality, and he loves him as much as he can. That is dualism. It is much raised. It is first step. So step is raised, then the ground. That one must understand. More and more he becomes a Ishtadvaiti. And more love without any limitation, then he will become Advaiti. What ideas can be more unreasonable than now logic? So logic has no base, understand. Vyasadeva in his Brahma Sutra, that is a sutra for this. Tarka pratishtana. Tarka apratishtana. So logic is according to your level of consciousness. And that is why we have so many sampradayas. And their own logic. This one must understand clearly. That reason or logic is no means of realizing God. If in Bengal there was a saying in those days, তুমি যাবে শিরায় শিরায় আমি যাব ডাগায় ডাগায়. Shira means in a leaf of the plant, there are those lines. Then I will enter the smaller lines. So if one argues, one can find subtler argument, then another subtler argument. This must be clear in the mind. I have been, fortunately or whatever, a student of mathematics. And in mathematics, this is taught. There was a philosopher, Western philosopher, Bertrand Russell. He was a philosophy student, but for his PhD, he chose mathematical philosophy. And then his book, Principia Mathematica, and he says formal logic. That means syllogism, you understand, the steps into which we put a logic. This is the so and so, therefore this is so and so. He says logic is not outside that syllogism. It is a way in which the opponent is convinced, that's all. Actually, this is so and so, therefore this is so and so, this therefore has no link. So the scientists, they appear very rational. They put in such language that we are convinced. So logic is not outside syllogism itself. That is Russell's shows. So, what ideas can be more unreasonable than saying, I am God, you are God, all things that are born and die are God. And when you will experience them, you will change it. So, what is the final Praman? In Vedanta, you know, we have 6 means of knowledge in our ordinary daily life. And the 6, in 6 you can make 6A, 6B. That is Shabda Praman. Now all our education, 90% of our knowledge is Shabda Praman only. What we read in books, what we learn from teachers. But all these 6 are absolutely no entry into Brahmajnana. So the first Praman for Brahmajnana is Rishi Vakya. Shabda Praman B. When the Rishis say Tattvamasi, then we can realize God. You must catch this. Now some people are absolutely unaware. Did I tell you yesterday? Somebody after food was talking to me. And I told that I will be here for about a month and then I will to university. He says that is the real place for you. And you know what I told? When the university was started, next day, Prabhakar Apna Premji had phoned me. I was in Rishikesh. Please come here to guide research. I told him my Vedanta is not for PhDs at all. My Vedanta is only for sadhaks. Then he said that you have science background and all that. All that is not for scholars or PhDs. So, some people, most of the people think there is some intellectual something. But this is our sadhana. What is our sadhana? Shravan Manan is lesson. And what is Shravan? Hear from a qualified man. Tattvamasi. And it leads to direct knowledge, understand. What other people teach us will be indirect knowledge. But when the rishis, qualified rishi, ananya prokte gatiratra nasti. So when he teaches, that leads to direct knowledge. But our thinking process has been vitiated from anadikal due to our wrong knowledge. So it has to be corrected, otherwise it is unable to appreciate what the man is saying, like Narendra. That is called Manan or that is called Yukti. Shruti, Yukti, Anubhuti. That is the new series. These 6 methods gone, thrown away. Shruti, Vishwakya, Yukti. What he exactly says, that means there is a scope of our intellectual reasoning to understand what he says. So next Praman is Yukti. And the final Praman is when we experience. Anubhuti, that is the final Praman. So this new set of Pramanas are applied in Vedanta. Shruti, Yukti, Anubhuti. Now what Thakur will do, we shall see later on, he will give him the Anubhuti. Then his Yukti will change. So this you follow. So people are unaware, what are we doing? You see, if we are Thakur's followers, we are having samanvita sadhana, emphasis may be on karma. But we are doing a samanvita sadhana, harmony. And the Jnana sadhana is Shravan Manan Nidyasan, that is the sadhana. Even in Karma Yoga, wonderful thing I found. Swamiji says, first listen, then think about it, and to the extent that it should enter all nerves here, all blood, and then you will realize. In Karma Yoga is telling this. So this is our main sadhana. And that is why I am mad up to these classes. Understood, Paul? So, what ideas can be more unreasonable than saying, I am God, you are God, all things that are born and die are God? The brains of the rishis and munis, the authors of such books, must have been deranged. How otherwise could they have written such things? That is Narendra's outspoken thing. The master smiled to hear these words of the plain speaking Narendra. Smile means he knows that now he is talking like that. But instead of suddenly attacking his spiritual attitude, that bhav is called spiritual attitude. He did not attack by logic, you are wrong. No, he did not attack. That is Thakur's method. He changed it. He said, you may not accept them now, but why do you condemn the munis and rishis? Because of that. That means everybody has a right to his thinking. And why do you put a limit to the nature of God? That is the most important. Today you feel nature of God is this. But there are so many natures of God. And absolute nature is only one. But relatively there are so many appearances. Go on calling on him, who is truth itself. Truth itself with a capital T. That means absolute truth. Not vachik satya. And then believe that to be his true nature in which he will reveal himself to you. So God will reveal to you his true nature. You should not imagine. The end of Mahimna, Tava Tattvam na janami, kidrishosi mahishu. Yadrishosi mahadeva tadrishaya namo. And this sadhana Thakur told Narendra, taught Narendra, will come to that house. And he had the vision of Buddha there. But Narendra did not give ear to these words of the master. For whatever was not established by reason then appeared to him to be untrue, and it was his nature to stand against all kinds of untruth. So for him, reason is the ultimate test. That itself is proved wrong. My Guruji, one sentence I will tell you, not down, in your mind at least. The highest intelligence is that which understands the limitations of intelligence. The highest intelligence is that which understands the limitations of intelligence. Not my intelligence or your intelligence. Intelligence has a limit. And if you understand that, that is intelligence. These all ideas are in Shveta Shaturupnisha. They found the inadequacy of reason. What does reason do? Reason can disprove anything which is wrong. But reason has no go to prove or tell you what is right. So they considered in Shatashatrupni all the theory and found the theory is wrong by reason. And they found now reason has ended. Then they dhyana yoganagata pasyan devatma shakti. Anyway, so we are digressed a little. What important things I am telling you. There are two schools in Vedanta about sadhana. Shankara's dear disciple Padmapad believed that hearing gives you knowledge. Because you are unable to get due to your wrong thinking. So, mana. And there are deep bhoga sanskaras due to wrong knowledge. So, Nididhyasan approves them. And finally, you know what you had known by hearing only. And Vedanta sufficient pramanas are there. I told you, Ananya Pratyagati Ratranasti. But there is other school, Vachusati and others, they say meditation is the means. And for that several pramanas, because I quoted Shweta Shweta, so I told that. They found reason inadequate, they dhyana yoganugata apasyan. So through meditation they found the truth. So okay, emphasis. Accept that both methods are there. But the standard Vedantic method is Shravan Manan Nidas. But Narendra thinks whatever not established by reason, sadhana Swamiji's analysis is 10%. Wonderfully has analyzed everything. That time, this time. And it was his nature to stand against all kinds of untruth. He therefore did not hesitate to adduce reasons against the doctrine of non-dualism. To many beside the master, and use even sarcastic words from time to time. He did not argue with master only. To many others he argued that Advaita is wrong. And sarcastically he would say sometimes that sarcastic we are coming now, and there came this Pratap Chandra Hazra. We have to understand Hazra's mentality now. And how he became Narendra's friend. Their level is not same at all. A person named Pratap Chandra Hazra used to live in the garden at Dakshineshwar at that time. Pratap's worldly circumstances were not now affluent as before. Therefore, in spite of his attempts at spiritual attainments, a desire for money very often got the upper hand in his mind. But keeping it secret to himself, he would speak of high selfless service to the Lord and try to gain praise thereby. Then he will get money. Calculation of loss and gain at every step became so natural to him that even at the time of practicing religion, he could not forego it. And the idea of attaining some miraculous power by means of japa, austerities, etc., with which he could satisfy his desire for money, seemed sometimes to creep into his mind. Now tell me today, people in general, what they think of spirituality. I will give an example. In Nagpur, we are an auditor. And used to say, you have become sannyasi, what have you gained? So gain means some power. And all these so-called godmen there. And that influences ordinary man. Ordinary man's concept of God itself is some power. When we think of God, the main should be consciousness. Chit, Chetana. The master knew that attitude of his mind from the very first day and advised him to call on God, giving up all ulterior motives. But the weak-minded Hazara did not only disobey his advice, but under the urge of pride, delusion, and self-interest. So something he knows, so pride comes. And the mind becomes deluded. And because of his selfishness, altogether. Preached, whenever he had leisure, to those who came to see the master, that he too was not a lesser son. And that is why he moved with Thakur everywhere. But along with this, he seemed to have in his mind a little real desire of becoming honest. This was evident from the fact that although the master knew of this conduct of his, and although he sometimes scolded him sharply for it, he did not drive him away from there once for all. Because some spirituality is there. Another thing may be, he is showing himself like Thakur. But by contrast, people will understand Thakur like Jatila Kutila. But he warned some of us against mixing much with him, saying that fellow Hazara has a great calculating mind, don't give ear to him. He was teaching them, you asked Thakur for some powers. Narendra was pleased with Hazara's intellectual capacity. With other good and bad qualities, Hazara had a skeptical temperament. Compared with other persons of similar education, he was quite intelligent. Therefore, he could understand a little of the discussion on the doctrines of the Western agnostic philosophy. What is agnosticism? There may be God, but we cannot know him. Hagiographical. You know the joke, Hagiographical prayer? Oh God, if you are there, do such thing for me if you can. So Western agnostic philosophers carried on by English educated persons like Narendra. Who is the topmost in the agnostics, through whom Narendra came to his senses? German philosopher Immanuel Kant. He has proved by logic that our logic cannot go anywhere. Our mind is made of time, space and causation. In Vedanta, this is called Desh Kal Nimitta. Our mind is made of space, time, causation. When we try to know anything by our mind, we project this network on that. And whatever is caught in that network, we say that is real. So let alone God, we cannot know the real nature of even a speck of dust. That is what Kant says. And up to that point, Narendra was believing in reason. And when he came to that, he understood it. And Thakur knows this from the beginning. This is the same way. Maya is defined in 2-3 ways. Nam-Rup is Maya. Subject-object division is Maya. Desh-Kal-Nimitta is Maya. I think we know that. Anyway, so you could understand Immanuel Kant. Narendra was therefore pleased with him and spent at his convenience an hour or two in conversation with Hazara whenever he came to Dakshineshwar. Hazara, of course, had to bend his head before Narendra's keen intellect. That much was not there. He listened with great attention to Narendra's words and sometimes prepared a smoke for him. Seeing that attitude of Narendra towards Hazara, many of us said jokingly, Mr. Hazara is Narendra's parent. How the master behaved during Narendra's visits to Dakshineshwar. The master happened very often to go into ecstasy as soon as he saw Narendra come to Dakshineshwar. Joy and Narendra's spirituality. Afterwards, when he regained partial consciousness, partial means he can talk, though he is in higher consciousness. He quite joyfully used to have long spiritual talks with Narendra. At those times, he tried through words and deeds to infuse high spiritual truths into his mind. Now and then he would feel like hearing devotional songs, but as soon as he heard the very sweet voice of Narendra, he would enter into ecstasy once more. So Thakur singing and Narendra singing. Thakur is singing with that experience. And Narendra fully identifies with that song and sings. And that sends Thakur into Samadhi. All this is alaukika. But Narendra's song would not stop on that account. He is already merged in that song. Thakur is in Samadhi, Narendra goes on singing. He became absorbed and went on singing songs one after another for a few hours. Stamina from one point, from the other point, so much merged is. When the master regained partial consciousness, he sometimes requested Narendra to sing a particular song. Again, that will go. But he would not be fully satisfied till at last he had heard from Narendra the song, Thou art whatever there is. This Thakur himself had taught him. You know this? तुझसे हमने दिल को लगाया जो कुछ है सो तू ही एक तुझको हमने ना हरा पाया जो कुछ है सो तू ही. The Sufis and Jafars, immanence of God. Afterwards, some time was spent in talking about various hidden truths of the non-dual doctrine, such as the difference between Jiva and Ishvara. Jiva and Ishvara well, because upadhis are different. Jiva is the individual body and mind, Ishvara is the cosmic body and mind. The real nature of Jiva and Brahman, real nature both Jiva and Ishvara is Brahman only. And so on and so forth. Thus there was a strong surge of bliss whenever Narendra came to Dakshineshwar. Narendra joined Hazara in ridiculing the truth of non-dualism. He was singing Jo Kuch Hai So Tu Hi Hai, but that spirit had not yet entered. The master touched Narendra in a mood of spiritual inebriation. One day the master told Narendra many things indicating the oneness of Jiva and Brahman of the non-dual philosophy. Narendra heard those words, undoubtedly with attention, but could not comprehend them, heard with attention because Thakur is speaking. And went to Hazara at the end of the master's talk. Smoking and discussing those things again with Hazara, he said, can it ever be possible that the water pot is God, the cup is God, whatever we see and all of us are God? Roti Brahma, Vati Brahma, Gati Brahma. Hazara also joined Narendra in ridiculing the idea, and both of them burst into laughter. The master was still then in the state of partial consciousness. Hearing Narendra laugh, he came out of his room like a boy with his cloth in his armpit. That is his standard thing. What is this? I told you one day. No? How we put on the cloth? It sticks to the body by the principle of friction. Now there is no body consciousness. Friction cannot. So those who lose body consciousness, their cloth drops. Not Thakur like a child gathers that and puts in arm. Like a boy with his cloth in his armpit and coming to them smiling and affectionately. What are you both talking about? He then touched Narendra and went into ecstasy. What happened by touch? As a result, Narendra had a wonderful experience. Narendra said to us afterwards, there was a complete revolution in the state of my mind in a moment at the wonderful touch of the Master. So here divinity only is being shown everywhere. Can we imagine anybody other than God doing like this? Miracle they can show. I was aghast to see actually that there was nothing in the whole universe except God. But I remained silent in spite of seeing it, wondering how long that state would last. But that inebriation did not at all diminish that day. For 6 months it remained actually. I returned home. It was all the same there. It seemed to me that all that I saw was He. I sat for my meal when I saw that all food, plate, the one who was serving, as well as I myself, were nothing but He. I took a mouthful or two and sat quiet. My mother's affectionate words, "Why do you sit quiet? Why don't you eat?" brought me to consciousness, and I began eating again. Thus, I had that experience at the time of eating or drinking, sitting or lying, going to the college or taking a stroll. I was always overwhelmed with a sort of indescribable intoxication. College and all that everywhere. When I walked along the streets and saw a carriage coming along before me, I did not feel inclined, as at other times, to move away, lest it should collide with me. For I thought, I am also that and nothing but that. My hands and feet always remained insensible at that time. Consciousness has changed. You cannot combine body consciousness with that. I felt no satisfaction whatever when I took my food. Personality becomes cosmic. It seemed to me as if someone else was eating the meal. Sometimes I lay down while eating and got up in a short time to continue eating. On some days, I thus ate much more than the usual quantity of food, but that did not bring about any disease. So the inner personality itself changes. That old Narendra is not eating, somebody else is eating. My mother was afraid and said, "You, I find her internally suffering from a terrible disease." Again, she sometimes said, "He will live no more." When that overwhelming intoxication diminished a little, the world appeared to me to be a dream. Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya. So if the Brahma Satya reduces a little, it is a dream world. Going for a walk on the bank of the Hedua tank, I knocked my head against the iron railings round it to see whether what I saw were dream rails or actual ones. On account of the insensibility of my hand and feet, I was afraid that I might be going to a paralysis. The sense is not there in that. I could not escape that terrible intoxicating mood and overwhelming condition for some time. When I came to the normal state, I thought that that was the indication of non-dual knowledge. Indication is actually after samadhi, this immanence. In non-dual knowledge, there is no, you are beyond I. So what is written in the scriptures about it is by no means untrue. Since then, I could never doubt the truth of non-duality. Now, a lot of discussion is necessary here. Why Thakur did not touch Adra? Why Thakur did not touch other disciples to give them Advaita? So what is the science of touch? No, Leelaprasanga is not to be read like a novel, though it appears like that. Analyze. A person fit for that knowledge, who will ultimately get that knowledge by himself, can be touched. Understood? Others, even Thakur's disciples, they would have been shattered. They could not have contained this. Though they would realize afterwards, but much long afterwards, passing gradually through all these stages. I'll quote another example. Holy Mother's disciple, dear disciple, Harupanand Swami, Raspberry Maharaj. He once went to Holy Mother and said, "What is the use of staying with you? My mind is not so pure." She said, "Why you are talking like that? People say you are very pure." What if people say? Why I see woman as a woman? This is level of purity, huh? Mother said, "Oh my boy, like that you are talking." And she put her hand on his head. And there was a total transformation. He could not see anything but Devi. To test it, he from market purchased bad photos, naked women and all that, and hung in his room. Not only Devi, Devi and Devi you see. So next day he went to mother and said, "Mother, you have won." She said, "My boy, this has come by my touch. This will not remain. But you will struggle and you will achieve this." So he also says for 6 months that was there. But Holy Mother is sure that he will struggle and achieve that. So wherever Thakur, Bhagavan Sri Krishna gave Vishwarup Darshan to Arjuna, he tried to give this to Duryodhana. And Duryodhana says, "He's showing magic, arrest him." So, no, we may think that somebody should come and touch us. And the question arises, Thakur did not touch Hadra there, and Thakur did not touch other disciples of his in that manner. Thakur has touched all of them and given some experience. In that Kalpataru day, they got their highest experience. All did not get the same experience. So, understood now? Now, today we discuss so many things. Now time is very less, but another wonderful thing has come. Should we touch it or leave it for tomorrow? Oh, we can, I think. We can read and discuss afterwards. And we may overcross by 5 minutes. The result of the author's conversation with Narendra on one occasion. Through Narendra, they came to know that Thakur is God. On another occasion, we heard of another wonderful event also from Narendra. He mentioned it to us in the winter of 1884, when we had become very familiar with him. But we infer that the event occurred at this time. Therefore, we narrate it to the reader here. We remember that we went to Narendra's house at Gormohan Mukherjee Street in Shimla a little before midday on that occasion, and were with him till 11 at night. 11 to 11. Swami Ramakrishna also was with us that day. The heavenly attraction that we felt for Narendra since we had first met one another became multiplied 1,000 times that day by the dispensation of providence. The only opinion that we entertained about the Master before that, he was a perfected man. That is, a person who had known God. But that day, the words of Narendra about the Master penetrated into our hearts and shed a new light on our minds. The extraordinary events, like those recorded in the biographies of great souls, the teachers of the world, such as the holy and glorious Jesus, Chaitanya and others, which we had read about and had been disbelieving so far, so long, where we understood that day taking place daily in the Master's life. He granted devotion to those who had taken refuge in him by touch or by untying at will the knots of their past impressions. He made them enter into ecstasy and realize divine bliss, or he changed the course of their lives into spiritual channels in such a way that the realization of God followed very soon. Understand, according to levels. If they are high levels, he gave them samadhi. A little less than he made them such that they will get samadhi. Very soon, and they were blessed for all eternity. Narendra, we remember, took us for a walk at dusk that day to the bank of Hedua tank. While relating the divine experiences he had had in his life by the grace of the Master. Immersed in his self, he remained silent for some time, and at last there burst out in a song, sung in his charming voice, the wonderful bliss of his heart. I will take that song from original Bengal. प्रेमधन बिलाय गोरा राय चांद निताई डाके आया है तोरा के नी बिरे आए प्रेम कलशे कलशे ढाले तबु ना पुराए प्रेमे शांतिपुर डुबु डुबु नदे भेसे जाए गौर प्रेमेर हिल्लो लेते नदे भेसे जाए. What is Shantipur? And Nitai, two names have come here. Yes. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's very close associate was Nityananda, that is Nitai. And another equally close associate was Advaitacharya. And Advaitacharya's village is Shantipur. There Chaitanya most of the time used to be dancing and all. Gora Rai means Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is called Gora Rai because he was fair complexion. Rai is Raja. Gora Rai distribute the wealth of love. Nitai Chand, Nityananda is called Nitai Chandra. Nitai Chand calls, come, 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 O you who long to have it. Jarfuls of love are being poured out, yet it does not get exhausted. Shantipur is being flooded, and Nadia means Navadip, Chaitanya's place. Nadia is swept up. Nadia is swept up by the current of Gora's love. Narendra mentioned a wonderful incident. The song came to an end in a soliloquy, as it were. Soliloquy, understand? Talking to himself. In dramas, people should listen. But he talks to himself. This is called soliloquy. He is not talking to another man. So Narendra is like a soliloquy. In a soliloquy, as it were, Narendra said gently, he is actually distributing love. Gora Rai is bestowing love, devotion, divine knowledge, liberation, and whatever else one may desire on whomsoever he likes. Oh, the wonderful power He sat silent and motionless for a while. I was lying on my bed at night with the door of my room bolted from within when he suddenly attracted me and took me, the one that lives within this body, to Dakshineshwar. Giving a great deal of instruction to me and talking on various subjects, he allowed me to return. He can do anything he likes. This Gora Rai of Dakshineshwar can do anything. Entering the author's house, Narendra had a unique experience. The darkness of dusk, we'll read this last paragraph. Om Sarvadharmastapakastam Sarvadharmaswarupakah Acharyanam Mahacharyo Ramakrishnaya Te Namaha Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.